So good afternoon once again, everyone, and thank you so much for making the time today. Today, our conversation addresses a topic that several creatives are going through, a situation that is many times difficult to talk about, and also the symptoms and signs are not easily visible. So we are privileged today to have Dr. Rita Sonko with us, who is a specialist in this area. So she will be taking us through today's conversation. Please listen in, prepare your questions, and let's engage today, and let's all be positive and be ready to learn. Dr. Rita, you're very welcome. I hand the microphone to you, and please enlighten us. Over to you, Dr. Rita.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's such an exciting opportunity for me to be here and to be able to speak to this esteemed audience about creativity and mental health. I come from Toli Wekka. It's a mental health campaign, and Toli Wekka translates "You're Not Alone." And we talk about breaking the silence and breaking the stigma against, mental health related issues. There's a lot of issues around that people are dealing with because of myths, lack of information, and that is one of the things that we are looking to do. All right, so I will talk to you about Toli Wekka briefly, just to give you a sense of what it's about. And this picture is a picture that we took at the launch of Toli Wekka in July. And I wanted to show you that we were already at that point engaging creatives. In this picture are three creatives. I think you all now know Mr. Nyanzi, Noah OHT Nyanzi, who you spoke to last week. And there is two other artists here, Barbara Muyinda, the gentleman with dreadlocks, and this gentleman with dark shades is, oh my God, Exodus. That is his, I was looking for his stage name. His name is Exodus. And so these creatives were already part of our conversations right from the get-go, because we realized that this is an important area that concerns creatives, and it's very important that we involve everybody that we can get hold of. There are other people in the picture, people from the ministries of education, of health, social, of gender and social development. Someone, Pastor Chaze is from the COPE, Confederation of Pentecostal Churches, and there's Professor Patrick Chamanywa. So all of these people were part of that launch, because we were really trying to mobilize quite widely around who we need to come on board for our mental health campaign. So a little bit about the problem statement, which I think you have already alluded to, Elizabeth. Mental health issues in Uganda reaching really crisis levels. I think you will all agree that in the media, even as of this week, we've been seeing so many stories around suicides, children committing suicide at school, which is so distressing. But escalating rates of depression, substance abuse, addiction, bullying, all of these are really concerning. And yet, of course, it's a silent epidemic that continues to be stigmatized in a very big way. So we have a lot of cultural issues that contribute to that, but the other issues are also really simply lack of knowledge. So despite this growing mental health need around in our country, the lack of knowledge is a big gap, and this obviously reduces the available support. So people generally struggle to access the support that they would need in order to get the help that they need. So our campaign, Toli Wekka, aims to break the silence surrounding mental health issues, reduce stigma, and provide practical solutions to improve mental well-being. By fostering open conversations and mobilizing resources, we seek to create a supportive environment where mental health is prioritized and those in need can access the help that they deserve. So who are we targeting? youth is a big target for us. Obviously, our country is a very youthful country with about close to 80% of the population being youth. So that is really, in essence, our primary audience. But we understand that to reach the youth, you actually have to go through different avenues. There's schools and educational institutions, but there's also obviously communities, faith communities, and influencers who are really, really important when it comes to youth. Now, the creatives are both the youth that we are targeting, but they are also the influencers. They are very, very important as a target audience. I should say you all are very important as a target audience because not only are you part of the youth group for most of you, but you're also a big influence on other youth. So being able to ensure that the creative community is on board with the fundamentals, gets the facts, knows what is myth, what is fact, knows where to get access to support, and actually utilizes these resources and stands up as a positive voice to influence other young people to access this support is very important. But parents and guardians are also very important because when you're dealing with youth or children, you really need their whole support system to help, right? So what we intend to achieve with Toli Wekka, we want to increase awareness, making sure that educational materials, radio skits that we have developed, our podcast, which I'll talk about briefly, Wellness Tea Time with Dr. Rita, it's on YouTube. We aim to close the gap around that knowledge gap, the lack of information, just to make sure people understand the mental health issues and that they actually seek help as they need it, when they need it, and also help other people to do the same. So reduced stigma using personal stories is very important. So having ambassadors like Exodus and others we find is extremely powerful because these people have stories, they have lived experience, and their stories become insightful and helpful for other people, for the general public and other young people, especially those that are their followers, the people that they influence, to hear those stories, which obviously then helps chip away at the stigma, which is one of the major barriers to seeking help. And then, of course, access to resources. We've launched tools like Mind Wisdom, digital mental health assessment or screening tools, and we are promoting social emotional skills through interactive games like Puzzle Wars, which I will talk very briefly about. All of these things are very helpful in helping promote the skills that are really, really needed to promote mental well-being. And then, of course, a mental health referral network is really one of the key things that we are focusing on because we are working with various mental health providers and building a robust nationwide referral system so that wherever you are in the country, you can actually access help and professional services as needed. So a community of support is one of the things that is critical. So encouraging collective action from various sectors so that we come up with really a holistic view of how we can support our population, our people to access help. So I will show you very briefly some data that we have from Ugandan youth. So on this slide, we have some very recent data that we have collected over the past few weeks, which just shows you for the children 12 years to 18, that kind of age group. These are your basically senior school, senior and high school children. We have this assessment which gives us color coding when you do the self-assessment, and I'll share with you a QR code, and I hope that all the listeners and viewers on this call can actually scan it. You all get a chance to scan it and do your own mental health assessment. So it will give you a green for good health, good mental health, a yellow where you have mild concerns, orange where you have moderate risk, and red where you have high risk. So this data is showing you that a lot of children in schools are in this yellow band. They have mild concerns, which means that we can actually pull them back into the green quite easily if we do some active engagements and health promotion activities. And especially support that builds their mental resilience and their social emotional skills. You do have a small portion that is green. You can see more males than females. I've divided up the data to show you the females and the males, and it's significantly different because you can see already that the girls, 16% in orange, 5% in red. That means that roughly 21% of the girls are struggling with moderate to high risk of poor mental health. That shows you that in this age group, the girls have a bigger problem. The boys are not too bad, but we're still concerned about them. So 2 of every 10 girls will require some help, professional help. And for the boys, it's roughly 1 out of 10, according to this data. Now, we've collected the data repeatedly in different settings for this age group, and we find that it's more or less, on par. Generally speaking, 3/4 of the young people are in yellow, so they are not doing too badly, right? So take note of that as I go into the next slide. Now, this next slide is showing you young people that are 18 to 30 years old. So immediately you can see, I hope you can see a big difference between the graphs that I showed you for the female participants and the male participants. And if we were together in the same room, I would already be asking you, what is the difference that you can see? But for the sake of time, I will just quickly describe that. You can see that our male participants have a much higher risk. So 5 out of 10 young men, so these are young men between the age of 18 and 30, are struggling with poor mental health. 21% with a red, that means they have really severe issues, they are at high risk, and 31% with moderate risk. So when you add those two, you get 52%. So that is a little bit more than half of the men. Compare that to the women, the young women, and you see that combining the red and orange gives you just under 20%. So for the girls, we haven't moved much from the 21% we had on my previous slide, the younger ones, to roughly 20% for the older ones. So it's more or less the same. But for the young men, it's like 5 times worse. So this for me is the biggest concern. And we're going to discuss this now, of course, in relation to the creatives. But this data, this is brand new data that we are trying to get out to the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and others. And I think it's relevant data for this particular audience as well. So in this slide, I'm just really summarizing the same. 2 out of 10 young women compared to 5 out of 10 young men are struggling. And the assessment that we're using is collecting data on, various elements, trying to pick up symptoms of various mental health disorders, including depression, stress, and anxiety. So those are the issues that you're picking up a lot more among the young men. And of course, we can discuss why this is, and some of my presentation alludes to some of that. Right, so now here is our QR code. So I would love for you to scan it. It will take, I don't want you to do the assessment right now, but just scan and see that you can access it so that when we move on, you might be able to use it. We think it's extremely important that even as we promote mental health awareness, that we help people understand where they stand for themselves. So it's one thing understanding, hearing the messages about mental health, understanding what it's all about, but you're always left with the question, how am I doing? How am I doing myself? So the QR code and the assessment tool that we have is very helpful in getting you to really understand where you're at. And of course, we say minding your mental health is the best thing you can do because this is your most valuable asset. There is nothing you can achieve in life if your mind is not in the right place. And I think all of you will agree with this. So what about creatives now specifically? So I've been showing you more generalized data, and now we need to think about the creatives. What are we learning? What are the issues? So a few months ago, towards the end of last year, I had a conversation with the gentleman I showed on the first slide, Barbara, and he is with the Uganda National Musicians Federation, and he is actually heading up their mental health department, which I thought is really, really cool that they've actually thought about what they can do and come up with a plan and created a mental health department, which is aimed at mobilizing resources and getting people on board to support them. So we are, as Toli Wekka, working with this organization and starting to come up with some programs. So I wanted you to just have a listen, watch what we discussed, and I'm just gonna go straight to the point. And you might, access this particular clip on our YouTube channel. So if you can actually follow us as well there, you will be able to get more insights. But I'll just start off here.
Yeah. There is peer pressure. But in the industry, it's quite different because we should. It should be brought to our notice that the creative art sector in Uganda is one that is informal. It doesn't have any structure. We're actually just trying to build and formalize it.
To formalize it now.
Yeah. So it is a free entry, free exit kind of sector. Anyone can decide to start singing tomorrow. So this is one of the biggest problems in the kind of research we have done, that unlike other sectors, maybe probably like the education sector, where you have to be oriented, you have to be coming on merit and this. Here, anyone can come in wherever they've grown up from and wherever they've been. So that informality has been an issue that creates a kind of pressure that these artists have no one to look up to.
Right.
When they look at that person, then they just want to copy everything.
Exactly how the person is. Yeah.
So you find that there is no room for themselves to be guided, mentored, and all.
So you're also talking about in terms of where they've come from. A young person has discovered their talent. They just became popular, and now they are doing the thing.
And now they have followers.
Yeah, and they have followers.
Looking up to them.
Yeah, now they become role models. Role models, yeah.
But of course, we also have what they call the stage fright, or the stage phobia, where you find that many of these artists have not experienced this elsewhere. So by the time you bring him, he's about 20 years. He has a big song, and he's supposed to face about 2,000 people.
2,000 people on stage, yeah.
The first time he comes and he doesn't impress, or he's afraid himself. The next time he's going to find options, or a stimulant, or he's going to be like, how does this one do it?
How do they do it so that they are calm?
So that they are calm, or so that they can face the people. So that stage fright also brings a lot of many creatives to try and find other diverse ways of standing confident. And of course, it comes with the aspect of low self-esteem. Yeah,
absolutely.
These are things
that challenge,
we should be teaching our young people as they grow up. To have. So the pressures around, speaking of the economy itself, there are a lot of pressures around here. Now we can zero on to first the upbringing, the kind of mindset we have in the country itself, and what the industry stands like.
So this person comes from that background where they themselves don't have enough skill set in their toolbox to cope under pressure.
Yeah.
And now they find themselves under this intense scrutiny, and and I understand there is also quite a bit of abuse, bullying. Or online bullying, and people, say all sorts of things and you can't handle it.
The social media impact has also been something that has really taken this industry elsewhere. And even before we jump to social media, even our mainstream media itself. And I've always, when I'm speaking to mental health students or persons out there, I always tell them that, Uganda has something that I don't know whether it is the government we should blame.
Hi, I think I'll leave it at that. it's a very interesting conversation, and I would encourage everyone to get back to it at some point. Basically, you can just subscribe to our YouTube channel and get a whole lot of conversations like this. And this one in particular was extremely powerful to, galvanize the key issues that UNMF have picked up and which are really of concern for all of us. So, oops, sorry. I think I need to escape there. Okay, great. So I wanted to now discuss what skills are needed to foster mental well-being. So, from the conversation that we were having with Mr. Muyinda Babara about the key issues, and of course, engaging youth and understanding the issues around mental well-being, I basically crystallized a few key ingredients that I would say are very important for protecting mental well-being. So you need to have what we call social-emotional skills. And in a nutshell, these are the skills that you need to survive in life, right? You need social-emotional skills to be able to be resilient, to be able to withstand pressure, to be able to know what you are about as an individual. And these are summarized here: your empathy, self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. So these are just in a nutshell. There are many others, or some of them are woven into some of these, but these in a nutshell would be the ones that I pull out. And then I would say that once you have mastered these, or you have gotten better at these are going to unlock the other very important skills that you need. We call them the big C's: communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. So these C's are really important for you to survive, whether you want to be an entrepreneur doing business, whether you want to promote your own music, deal with the people that manage music, the whole music industry. You need these skills, right? And you cannot really be a good communicator. You cannot be a good critical thinker or a creative person if you don't have self-awareness, you don't have self-regulation, don't have social awareness. Now, I need to distinguish between creativity that I'm referring to here and the creative industry, because that is kind of in a nutshell, like you are all creatives anyway. But when you're problem solving in your creative spaces, are you thinking out of the box? Are you coming up with creative ways to solve problems? That is what I'm meaning here by creativity in this particular context. I'll describe just briefly some of these concepts, and we can obviously, hopefully, have a little bit of time to discuss after this. So self-awareness refers to one's ability to identify their emotions and emotional triggers and understand how they affect their behavior and performance. So remember that mental well-being and mental health is really about being able to control and be in charge of your emotions, your feelings, and your thoughts. When those things run out of control, then it's very hard for you to really remain in a good state of mental health. So for promoting mental well-being, this is one of the keys: being self-aware and being able to identify your ability to manage your emotions and what are your triggers, what are the situations that make you tick or make you really struggle, and so forth, okay? It involves being aware of how others might perceive your emotions and how you can communicate with them more effectively. So I've been speaking about communication as really being key. And so being self-aware is really, really important. Do I come across as aggressive? Sometimes people come across as aggressive, but they don't even know it. Sometimes people come across as too crude because of the words they're using and whatever, and they put off other people. So how are we communicating? How are we engaging? And how are we being perceived? So being aware of how you're perceived is really important. And then recognizing one's emotions, your strength, your values, which are fundamental for your personal growth and self-improvement. You cannot improve yourself if you don't have a self-awareness about your strengths, your values, your emotions, what works for you, what things people consider of value that you bring, because that is what you're going to sell to the world, right? Self-regulation or self-management refers to one's ability to plan, organize, and monitor their work performance in different situations. It involves using coping skills to calm yourself down, challenge negative thoughts. I mean, we all deal with these negative thoughts on a daily basis. Every minute, actually, there's floods of thoughts that come to your mind. Some of them are positive, but a lot of them are also negative, threatening you. What if that doesn't happen? What if this deal doesn't go through? Then what? Then what? Those negative, challenging thought patterns. And we need to challenge them. We need to be able to say, no, I'm going to stick on the positive side. We need to celebrate the achievements. We need to seek support from others when we face difficulties or challenges so that we can cope, basically. Self-management can help you cope with stress, overcome obstacles, and improve your productivity and satisfaction at work, right? Self-management entails the ability to value yourself and your abilities in a realistic and confident way. So when we talk about self-esteem, are you coming across as someone who has a positive self-esteem and is realistic and confident about what you're doing, but again, not being too overconfident that you miss the point, right? It involves recognizing your strengths, weaknesses, accepting yourself as you are, and believing in your potential. Self-esteem can help you deal with criticism, overcome self-doubt, and pursue your goals with motivation and passion. So you need to understand who you are, where you're coming from, and manage all of that. Can I just have an indication if you're all still hearing me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. A thumbs up from the team if you can hear Dr. Rita. Yes, we're good.
Okay, good. Right. So empathy, ability to understand and share feelings, thoughts, or experiences of another person from their perspective, right? When we say we are being empathetic or we are really empathizing with other people, what does that mean? We share how they feel. We sit with them when they are going through difficulty, and we express that we are there to support them. It involves recognizing and appreciating what someone else is going through emotionally or mentally without judgment, and trying to you don't have to impose your own experience on theirs, but rather understand where they're at. This is important because in a sector, an industry where a lot of people are under so much pressure and they resort to substance use, for example, it's very important that we understand where they're at. And then that's how we can begin to help them. So being able to sense and understand another person's emotions, whether they are happy, sad, frustrated, or excited, this is actually going to help you to help them, but at the same time help yourself. So when we don't have empathy, sometimes we miss opportunity to help others. But when others are affected by whatever is affecting them, sometimes it also affects us as well. So think about, I was thinking this morning actually about the children in the dormitory of this boy that apparently died by suicide at Seta High. Those children, maybe they saw this child struggling, maybe they didn't even notice, but he's passing, waking up and your friend is hanging. It's just horrific. And it's obviously very traumatizing for those children as well. So their parents are going to actually have to deal with that trauma and support these children to overcome that trauma. So in other words, when we help our colleagues, we are actually in many ways helping ourselves as well. So putting yourself in someone else's shoes and acting with kindness, care, and understanding, that is one way that we can mitigate a lot of problems, which may seem far from us, but they're actually not too far from us if you think about it. Social awareness and relationship skills. I think when we think about social awareness, and relationship skills, these things are interrelated. So social awareness refers to the ability to understand the perspectives of others and empathize with their feelings, needs, and concerns, and especially being mindful of others from diverse backgrounds, cultures, and contexts. We all come from very diverse backgrounds, and being able to understand the different perspectives is very important. Then relationship skills refers to the ability to establish and maintain healthy and supportive relationships and to effectively navigate settings with diverse individuals and groups. So I can imagine that in the creative space, you come across people from all sorts of diverse background. Now I'm brought to the thought that I love, for example, watching the dance and drama of Ndere troops at their center as one of the places I always take my guests to watch, so they get a sense of our cultural diversity. But I can imagine also that space where those people in the troops, in the Ndere troops, are working together. They are from very diverse backgrounds, but they have to put on a show. They have to make sure they entertain us, but at the same time, they have to take care of themselves. So in environments where many of you work, you find yourselves in very diverse settings with different people, and it's important to build good relationships that support one another. It involves the need to be able to communicate effectively, collaborate productively, and resolve conflict constructively, because these things are inevitable. Whenever you have a group of people mixing together, there is always going to be some level of conflict from time to time. So how do you resolve these conflicts constructively? You also need to be able to build trust, to build rapport, and loyalty among those you relate to. So these are very, very important. And I think, talking a little bit more about relationship skills, it's important then that people have these kind of skills that are helpful to develop positive, relationships with other people. So here I just go in a little bit extra detail. What skills do you need to have good relationships? So being able to initiate contact with others and cultivate friendships is something we may take for granted when it comes easy to us, but it doesn't come easy to everybody. Some people are so introverted that they can't actually develop this kind of relationships easily or friendships easily. So if they come from somewhere different and they come into a new environment, they might struggle more than other people. So sharing one's thoughts and feelings appropriately, that is one skill that one has. Like, do you overshare, or do you know when to stop sharing and who you share with? Not everybody needs to know everything. Communicating effectively, obviously, developing positive relationships, I've spoken about that. Demonstrating cultural humility. I think when we talk about cultural diversity, that's also part of that. And practicing teamwork and collaborative problem solving. And then, of course, resolving conflicts. So all of these are important elements. And if you think of the young person that Barbara was describing, you've come in from the village somewhere, yeah? You discovered you have a talent. And now you find yourself in Kampala because it's a melting pot for all the talent, and this is where you're going to get opportunities. What skills are you coming with in your toolbox to be able to survive? Do you have these relationship skills? Do you have self-management skills? Do you have self-awareness? All the things that I've been talking about. So some of the relationship skills, again, continuing, approaching relationships with positive presuppositions. I think this is important, that when you're engaging in a sector or in a space with new people, you come in at it with a positive mindset, not one that assumes that these people are going to take advantage of me. I assume these people are going to bully me, or I think these people won't understand me. When you come in from that negative presupposition, chances are you don't actually succeed in creating positive relationships. Resisting negative social pressure. I think Barbara was describing that very clearly around a lot of social pressure that happens within the creative space, trying to fit in, trying to make sure you think what they're doing is what is right, and so you just try and do. And of course, resisting stereotypes, this is very important. Standing up for the rights of others. Again, this is a bit around empathy and putting yourself in their shoes, showing leadership in groups, that you can now pretty much stand out and be able to be helpful to other people and be a guide, and seeking or offering support and help when it's needed. So all of these are kind of a wide range of skills that we would term as relationship skills. If we look at what we need, what can we do to improve our mental health and well-being? Very important to think about self-care. Now, we cannot overemphasize the importance of self-care and why this is really critical for all of us to be thinking, how do I improve my mental well-being on a day-to-day? Maintaining a good balanced diet, that is one thing. All of these things are very helpful. Maintaining regular exercise, sufficient sleep. I can't overemphasize that. Sleep is one of the most critical things for our mental well-being because it enables the brain to reorganize, regroup, and basically come back fresh after a nice rest. Engaging in activities that promote relaxation and reduce stress. All of this is very important. So the skills that we've been talking about, self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, are particularly vital here because you get to know yourself, what works for me, what can I maintain. There's a beginning of year, there's a lot of pressure. We put ourselves under, set new goals and so forth. But, by this time of the year already, actually, end of Feb, we can't even keep up. But we need to find what works for us and basically stick to that, understanding that self-care is really one of the most fundamental areas for improving your mental well-being. It's not just for the physical body, but for the mind as well. One of the issues is obviously adopting behavioral remedies that improve mental health. It's very important that we start to look at our mental well-being constructively and think about what is it that I need to do for myself. So recognizing and knowing what you're going through, that is self-awareness, is a nice behavior to adopt. Can I look in the mirror and talk to myself and understand where am I at right now? So become the observer of your mind, yeah? I think some of you, maybe hopefully many of you will understand that you are not your body and you are not your mind. The you is bigger than those things. So you can actually step out and observe your mind and see what is really going on. What are the negative thoughts that this mind is entertaining? I don't have to entertain these thoughts. I can push them away. Feelings and emotions that are happening within that mind. What can I do to clean this up? Avoid getting caught up in those thoughts and emotions, but basically practice positive self-talk, which is very important. Avoiding circumstances that may make you even more vulnerable. So in the conversation with Barbara, he spoke a little bit about, the skill set that people come with, where their upbringing and the limitations thereof. And they may not necessarily ever have had a chance to even understand this self-awareness issue. This is something that's important. Prayer and meditation, your spiritual health contributes significantly to your mental health and well-being. So knowing your purpose, what is your purpose in life and what are you working to fulfill? And why are you here in the first place? So being spiritually grounded as a human being is very important. We are body, mind, and spirit. So when we get that and we do the work that we need to do to get into a positive, good spiritual health, that will actually promote our mental well-being. And then, of course, building broader social networks beyond your nuclear family, building social support networks that are positive, that are going to help you actually improve. So seeking out your old friends, getting involved and building new friendships. This could be at church, in social clubs, in clubs like Rotary, Neighbors, and all of that. There are so many ways we build these social networks. And the point here I'm making is that we need to actually continuously build those social networks. You will be surprised, or maybe you won't, but there are many people who actually feel isolated. They feel lonely. They don't have sufficient social networks to support them when they're in trouble. Maybe some of them have good buddies when they are making a lot of money and things are going well. And when things are not going well, those buddies are nowhere to be found. So therein lies the problem. And then, of course, investing time in more relaxing exercises, be more intentional to walk, to go to the gym, hike, Pilates, swimming, other kind of exercises that would actually be very helpful for your mental well-being, as I've indicated prior to this. Yes, I'm looking for my cursor. Okay, there you go. Open communication is a very important skill. Open dialogue about your mental health. When those around us know what we are going through, they are more empowered to understand and support us. So sharing also helps us reduce the stigma associated with mental health, and it gets us the support. So if you have a group of friends and you kind of have opportunity to talk to them about what you're going through, you're going to get more support naturally. We need to create more opportunities for fun, but of course, making sure, again, that you're not overdoing anything. So do things you enjoy, be more intentional to create happy moments. More daily bouts of laughter will keep the doctor away. That is what I would say. So a little bit of laughter every day is helpful, but don't overdo it. This whole pack-a-last partying that we do is detrimental for your overall well-being and especially for your mental health. So you don't want to overdo anything. And then, of course, avoid unhealthy coping means. So I'll speak a little bit more about this because this is one of the biggest challenges we have with the creatives. I think in the creative space, already the work environment almost fosters that idea that I need to be drinking because you're going to entertain people. And when you're doing that entertainment, alcohol is often part of it. People are smoking, and these days they are smoking all sorts of things. They're not just smoking cigarettes that we knew. There's a whole lot of substances that are being put in those hubbly bubblies and vaping and all sorts of things. Very important that you avoid indulging in things like this, because what happens is that when you're under stress and pressure, when you take alcohol, it kind of numbs the emotional pain and you think that, this is actually good for me, because when you take that alcohol or you take that drug, it's going to actually make it a little bit less painful at an emotional level. So stress and emotions tend to kind of be numbed a little bit. So your brain starts associating that feeling, the good feeling you get of not having or experiencing this emotional stress and pain, to alcohol. So it tells you, oh, the more you drink, the more you're going to feel good. But then that's where addiction comes in. So very, very important that when you're going through a rough patch, when you're going through stressful situations, when you're going through anxiety or whatever it is, absolutely avoid any of these things that would potentially cause you addiction. So the drinking, the alcohol, smoking, all sorts of things is to be avoided at all costs. And then, of course, introduce healthy new practices, introduce mindfulness, for example. There's a lot of mindfulness practices. I will not get into that in detail, but you can Google these. Breathing exercises that can help you manage stress and promote mental clarity. And then, of course, very important that you seek help and professional support for your mental health as needed. So when you've done that mental health assessment that I showed you, what can you do to make sure that you improve your mental well-being? So you can actually seek help. And that's very important because that will be one of the things you can proactively do. Now, as I wind up, don't forget to get your daily dose of happiness. What is dose? So in our body, we have these happy hormones: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. These are what we call happy hormones. So everything that you do that can increase a little bit of these happy hormones is actually going to be helpful. So how do you increase dopamine? You can increase dopamine by setting small daily goals and accomplishing them. Just keeping like a to-do list for that day and ticking off those things on a daily. That in itself is actually going to increase your dopamine. Undertaking, participating in things that you're happy with to do, like you love, your hobbies, whatever your hobby is, as long as it's a healthy hobby, it is something that is actually going to increase your dopamine. Keeping a gratitude journal. What are you grateful for? You're here today, not everything is wonderful, but surely there is something you're grateful for. A gratitude journal, highly, highly useful. Creative activities, painting, craft making, drawing, woodwork. I'm speaking to creatives, but I also understand that creatives come from different sectors. So not all creatives paint or do crafts. You might be a creative, but you're from a different space, and you can come into doing some of these other more hands-on active activities that are actually going to release dopamine into your brain, and that will increase your happiness. Oxytocin comes about with social connections, bonding with friends and loved ones, showing empathy to others, giving, being able to be part of communities of givers, people who do charity work. All of these things actually release oxytocin. Serotonin, mindfulness practices, meditation, more sleep, spending more time in the sun, having a good diet and exercise. All of these things will increase your serotonin. And then endorphins, pleasurable physical activities. You can be creative around thinking what that might include. Music, laughter, and chocolate. Don't overdo to anything. Of course, I don't want you to overdo the chocolate, but it's true that chocolate will release a little bit of the endorphins. Music is good for us. But with everything, remember, everything in moderation is really the right formula to go with. So get yourself a dose of happiness, and that will actually help you. In closing, mental health awareness that we're doing with Wellness Tea Time with Dr. Rita, the podcast. You can check us out on YouTube at Toli Wekka Podcast. Or on Spotify. On Spotify, we have a lot more episodes. We've done 82 episodes so far. And this will give you many different insights, diverse perspectives, because we talk to guests from diverse backgrounds who actually really help demystify the issues and also really help us now to understand the issues around stigma. And this is helpful. So I would suggest that you check out our channel and share it with others as well. So as I finalize, I want to invite you to join us, partner with us as we push to break the silence and break the stigma around mental health and mental illness in particular. A lot of people don't understand the difference between mental health and mental illness. We should be striving to be mentally healthy, and we should be striving to avoid or deal with mental illness. So it's the mental illness we are trying to avoid, but we are aiming to be mentally healthy. I hope my presentation has given you some insights. Again, the QR code that you might try out. If you haven't already scanned it, please, this is your chance. And to reach out to us, I've provided my cell phone number here and the Toli Wekka email address. And please, again, find us on all the different social media at Toli Wekka. Thank you so much. And over to you, moderator.
Thank you, Dr. Sonko, for that wonderful submission about mental health and being a creative as trying to navigate the ecosystem, but also the challenges that come with it. I would invite the audience to submit any questions that you have. You can simply unmute yourself and share and ask the question, and then Dr. Sonko will take turns in answering your questions. My name is Edna. I support the Kuonyesha Art Fund. I work with Elizabeth as a program support.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jacob.
Yes, my name is Kajebe Jacob Joshua, and I'm very passionate about mental health and well-being. My question is because I saw Toli Wekka, and I thought on how far can we go to try and translate these words, mental health and well-being, for a layman to understand them. Like, how can we localize it, and what would be the equivalent of these words in a local language, so that when we are talking about it, someone can understand it from that point of view. I don't know if Dr. Soko has anything to say about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacob, for your submission. Dr. Sonko, you can respond to him.
Thank you. That's a great question. On my YouTube channel, I do have a podcast, a video actually describing a little bit more about Toli Wekka, trying to explain in Uganda what we are talking about. So the way we would describe it, and I've actually engaged extensively with other mental health professionals and other doctors to try and get the right language. So, mental health in Luganda. Pardon me if you don't speak Luganda, but that's the only language that I'm confident with. But in Luganda, you would say, engeri gye weewuliriramu, embeera y'ebirowoozo byo n'engeri gye weewuliriramu is what we are talking about when we talk about mental health, okay? So it's that state of your thoughts and emotions that becomes important. So unfortunately, Luganda and English are very distant from each other. So you won't find one word or two words that describe mental health. You're going to use a whole sentence to describe what you're talking about. But I think in a nutshell, people understand it. People need to understand that when we're talking mental health, we're not talking about the physical brain. When we're talking about the mind, we're not talking about the physical brain. Obwongo, although in Uganda, Obwongo means two things. There is Obwongo, the physical brain, and Obwongo, the mind, because we don't have another word for mind. So, so we have to really elaborate and explain these things. But we've tried on our channel to provide some of that. And of course, as we go forward, I will make an effort to include more languages. Uganda is extremely diverse, with lots and lots of languages. So yeah, it's a big challenge, but a point well taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Badru, go ahead. Barbara, please go ahead.
Barbara. Thank you. I just wanted to add on what Dr. Rita was saying. As you were saying that Luganda is a bit complex and limited in its words. But I was also thinking there is a word endoza. Endoza, would it be now mindset? Is it also thinking? I don't know. Maybe we still have to do more research to find out how to incorporate these things. Because also to respond to the gentleman, we were engaging with Ministry of Health, and I think one of the next moves they are trying to do is to see how to simplify these scientific terms, because mental health itself is difficult to explain to a layman to understand that you're not saying they are sick, but you're actually saying that it is important to keep your mindset or your minds into the right place. So we found out that we need to involve religious leaders, cultural leaders have a big role to play, because we are one of the most diverse countries. We have so many tribes, and breaking down the message has to be a collective, initiative that we all have to do. But yes, I think it's a big concern, and as Doctor said, there's still a lot to do about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara, and thanks for joining us. I'm excited that you are actually on the call. And I think viewers our listeners might have had some questions pertaining to the conversation we had. If there's any time and you're still on the call, we would welcome any comments or questions on some of the discussions we had. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for that submission. If you'd like to contribute to this conversation or ask any questions, you can simply unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can type in the chat section and we will read that out loud for everybody else to hear.
Is it okay to ask more than one question? I think I will do that.
Yes, it's okay.
Okay. Dr. Rita, I would like to also ask if you have any historical reference to talk about mental health in Uganda. Um, is there anything we can use, either maybe the stories that were told, because our elders usually had a way of talking about so many things that affect human beings. So I'm wondering if you know of any maybe traditional stories that were told and could reference mental health, or were preparing the next generation to practice maybe these coping mechanisms that you just shared a while ago. Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic question, and one that I would even want to engage our cultural leadership, because they tend to archive some of these resources. But it's a great question, because I think that there's been a transition from a place, even in our own lifetimes, myself and my peers, I'm sure, people in their 40s, 50s, will remember that, growing up, for example, suicidality wasn't such a common issue as it is now. Partly, I think there are two things there: that on the one hand, maybe people were committing suicide we didn't know about. We didn't have social media, so news didn't travel as quickly. But I do believe that there's actually an escalation of these issues. And these escalations are brought about by many things, one being social media and social pressures, which are much more intense than we ever experienced before. I think we need to dig up and find those positive stories. One of the things that has obviously happened traditionally, which we have in part lost, is the opportunity to sit by the fire in the evening and talk as a family or as a group, extended family usually. When we would be at our grandparents' house, we would sit around the fire or sit around the meal and have conversations, which are obviously going to help you unwind a little bit, maybe even talk about some of the issues that are really happening in one's life. Today, people sit, they have their meal. Even when they're in a restaurant, they've gone actually with their children to have a meal. And it is so distressing to see. I've seen it so many times, that people are out together and everyone is on their gadgets. The food comes, they all take photos of the food so they can share that photo. But they are not sharing a meal with the people sitting across from them. They are simply there in the restaurant having a meal, and each one of them in their own little worlds, on their social media, and sharing pictures and showing where they're at, but hardly having a conversation and connecting. And the modern family today is struggling like that, because we don't actually have conversations among ourselves. Children don't talk to parents. Parents don't have time for children. There is no opportunity to engage. So we have lessened all of those coping mechanisms that we had traditionally. But that said, I also want to put out there that we also have some cultural prohibitions to mental health. We know a lot of the stigma is also culturally driven. For example, dying by suicide is hugely, hugely stigmatized and frowned upon. And people do not understand that it actually is an illness that would drive you to commit, to basically, do this. So suicide is not something that comes out of someone willingly deciding that, oh no, this is a good day to die. No, it is actually a mental illness, usually severe depression, that is going to push someone to get to a point of making those decisions and harming themselves, in that way. But we traditionally, at least in Uganda, as I understand, they would cane the dead body. They would dig a hole below where the person hung, because most of this would have happened in the garden anyway, because that's where you would have a tree that is strong enough to basically do that, often not in the house. And they would just dig a hole below the tree and cut the the rope and basically bury the person like that. And that was to detract, to tell other people, you can't do this, it's not acceptable, we will not stand for it, we will not give you a proper funeral. They are not even the church people don't come. So even religious leaders have also been in many ways also promoting, that kind of lashback. And then, of course, the family that, this person belongs to, they take the brunt of all of that. They are stigmatized. They are told, oh, those people are wobeta, umbagende kompola, as if it's a contagious illness. And then they don't ever talk about it. My own family, we've had this problem. One of my cousins, unfortunately, died by suicide in South Africa, and we had to bring him back. No, we wanted to bring him back, but the family said, no, absolutely not. He had to be buried in South Africa. And for my family, there's no recovery yet, even though I'm pushing and saying, let's talk about it. We have not had a conversation within the family about this problem. So the nuclear family for my cousin, the mom, dad, and siblings, are in that state of never having closure to talk about this thing and kind of say how they feel, because culturally they were barred from, ever talking about it. So culture has positives, but also negatives, and there's a lot of negatives we have to deal with. I think that is another long session we could have just on culture. But I agree that there is positive elements that we can build on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rita. Beatrice, your hand is up. Please unmute.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed that talk, and I'm writing short stories on mental health, so this is very, very, very important for me. And also, I really like to care about my men. So I've been reading some books about mental illness, and one of the books that I read was A New Earth by Wekka, and he talks about pain bodies. And when I read it, it hit me that this is something that we all experience. There are days when we are like sad because something happened, and it's making us sad, and so we make everyone around us sad. And as artists, we need to figure out what are these things, this power that comes of sadness that engulf us, and we have to, I don't know. I know poets, according to research, they're deeply affected by mental health because of what they write about society, and so that really affects them. And I was just wondering, is there specific, of course, we have to do all these general wellness practices to feel better, but are there some things that poets can do differently so that they're not depressed, they're not the ones who maybe commit suicide? Even in Uganda, I know there are some poets who have committed suicide.
It's a great question, and I think knowing particular groups who might be even more vulnerable gives us opportunity to target specifically those individuals. So I think that's a really great point. I think it's one that requires us to investigate a little bit more. I know, for example, I will tell you that in my own space of the medical practitioners, we also have highly vulnerable groups. The suicidal rates are very high among medical doctors and other medical practitioners, nurses and that. But among all of us, we find that, for example, the people who do anesthesia, anesthesiologists or anesthetists, they tend to have a much higher rate. And this is because they have access. They have access to all the staff. So within any sector, you'll find that there will be people who are more vulnerable. But if we can unpack it, we might actually discover more insights. We might discover that some other people that you may not have thought of as vulnerable are actually also highly vulnerable. So that is one thing we can investigate further with research. And then, of course, through engagements such as these that we are having now, we can start generating some solutions to address this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rita. Do we have any other questions from the audience? I have, okay. Katesi, your hand is up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rita. Thank you so much, Kuonyesha. Yeah, this has been very informing in a number of ways that I cannot quantify. I am kindly seeking for some clarity on something. In reference to your presentation and then some of the questions that my fellow participants have asked, I would like to put my focus on how does one identify that they are having a mental challenge, especially in the creative side. It may look so obvious, but I'm coming from a point where when you look at how some of the cultural traits in terms of an African is strong, an African is presented as a strong character. I'm coming from a background of some research that I was doing in 2021, and I was interviewing people that had gone through human trafficking, and then they also shared that they had a challenge with what I'm talking about, in a sense that they had trauma that they had gone through, but they could not open up because they were scared of being seen as weak. They were scared of being seen as very complaining, as I don't know if you get my point. So I'm trying to borrow from that and trying to hear from you, the expert. How does one identify that, okay, maybe this is being too much, or this is actually, there is a problem? I don't know if you get my point.
I get your point, and that's why we have these screening apps that I've shared today, because this now starts to give you some tangible hard data that you can use at a personal level. Do I actually have a problem or do I not? Remember, during COVID, I think the whole globe got used to screening because we're doing all of this COVID screening everywhere you went. You checked yourself, you were asked questions, they checked your temperature, and then eventually you even did some lab tests if there was such suggestion that one might have symptoms or more symptoms linked to COVID. So similarly, with potential for high risk mental health challenges, beyond the screening app that I've shown you here, there are other tools as well. Then one needs to, for example, if you got a red or orange, that's when you now get a mental health professional to do a more in-depth assessment, which can now give you the facts from a professional perspective to know what's going on. One of the myths is that one that you raised around, people who have mental health challenges are weak, and the perspective that if I start now talking about this, then I am just being too difficult or complaining or whatever. Or Africans, we're too strong for that, or these things are for the rich people or the white people. They are the ones who can get depressed. All of this obviously is not correct. And this is why we're doing this mental health awareness session, so that people understand resolutely that just like no one in the world will tell you they're immune to headache. There is not a single culture or person or class of people that will say, for me, I'm immune to headache, right? So why would you be immune to having a mental health challenge, a mind issue? Because just like the body, the mind also does get unwell at some point. So we just need to keep making that point and getting people to understand what mental illness is about, what mental health challenges are about, and understand that everybody is vulnerable, just like everybody is vulnerable to a headache or to a tummy ache or tummy upset or whatever it is. We can all get any of these things. And we just need to be proactive, get the help we need, and really do our bit to increase the knowledge and awareness and address the stigma issues. But thank you, it's a great question.
Thank you, Dr. Rita. Jackie, Katesi, your hand is still up. Is that a new hand, or you'd like to supplement on your question?
It's a new hand. Dr. Rita has answered me perfectly well, and I greatly appreciate. So I just wanted to also get some clarity in regard to social media as one of also, in my opinion, I may be wrong, but according to my surroundings and the people that I've interacted with, and even my own self, social media contributes to mental challenges, and especially at a time where we are in an era where it is a social media kind of like trend era. I would like to hear more from Dr. Rita. What would be your advice, those catchphrases, those highlights to us, the people that are navigating so widely in this social media era in relation to mental health? Thank you.
Social media brings up a whole lot of risks pertaining to our mental health because we are overexposed to a lot of bad news. If you look on social media, you're going to find that most of the time you're getting bad news. If it's not bad news, you're getting fake news. If it's not fake news, you're getting reports that people are doing so much better than you. Because you're seeing all these images, people on fancy boats and holidays, and you're thinking, oh, but how am I doing? It means I'm not doing well. And yet most of it is fake news anyway. It's fake. But that said, being bombarded all the time with information does not rest our minds. You go to bed and you still have your phone beside you, and each time it goes ping, ping, you check it. You've posted something and you want to see how many followers you have, you become obsessed with seeing how many followers, how many likes. And all of this is actually really, really bad. So for the young minds, especially the children, addiction is real. Addiction to social media is real, but also for adults as well, but they're just a little bit more vulnerable. So I think it's very important that we find ways to manage that. And that's really part of our self-management skills that I was talking about. How much dose do I need of this thing? How do I contain myself not to overindulge in some of these things? So overindulging in social media is again, a social ill that we really need to address as well. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you answered me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Rita. Barbara, your hand is up. Please ask.
Yes, I just wanted to comment on the question that was raised about social media. Cyberbullying is actually a very serious, what should I say? It is a trend that is happening, and it is becoming a pandemic, I should say. Silently eating up people without them knowing, taking them into depression, taking them into hate, isolation, isolating themselves. And this one I wanted to comment because for us, this side of the music industry, or generally the entertainment sector is very, 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 very much concerned about this what I'm calling a pandemic that is eating up the sector so much, because we are so vulnerable, we are at high risk, we are public figures, so it is very easy, to hit back at you with character assassination, so it is a very, very big topic that I believe, Dr. Rita, we should consider this one as one of the drives, because Uganda is not going to go behind the world, but we have to find a way of embracing the digital era, as Madam was mentioning just earlier. It is an era that we are in, so we cannot say we are going to fight the internet or fight the transformation, but we have to find a way of embracing it and also securing these young people. Because now there are questions like, at what age should a child be allowed to access a smartphone? We are parents here, but that is a big question. Some people will say, oh, I don't want my child. And another one will say, that one is again going to force the child into doing it without your notice. Or, a child being depressed because she's not like what other kids are telling at school. So this social media thing and generally the digital transformation is a serious topic that we should discuss separately, broadly, and also consider in the actions we are taking forward. Thank you.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Do we have any other questions from anybody in the audience? Dr. Rita, circling back to your presentation, And the remedies that you recommended to, well, prevent first of all, but if you have a colleague or somebody who has already slipped past past the danger line, what advice do you recommend or steps to be able to reel that person back into the space to get help or to even access the help that is needed?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing is to seek professional help. So, of course, how do you get them to see that they have a problem? Use this screening app and get them to do it. They will naturally, if they have a lot of issues, they're going to come in with a red or orange. If they are truthful in answering the questions. Once they get orange or red, we would recommend that they actually seek professional support. So reach out to Toli Wekka, reach out to any other professionals that maybe you're already using. And here I'm talking about psychologists, professional psychologists, that will be your first line care. A professional psychologist is the equivalent of going to a GP, a doctor who is a general practitioner. So they would then do an assessment. They will determine what help you're going to need, and they will basically refer you to other professionals where it's necessary. They might send you to a psychiatrist if it's necessary, or any other professional, or they will manage you themselves. In managing, we have psychotherapy, which is a really important aspect. It's not just medications. The medications are usually issued by the psychiatrists. The counseling and psychotherapy is done by the psychologists. And the combination of the two is essential for you to basically recover from a whole lot of mental health challenges. But the professionals will decide. Just like you don't decide that I'm going to just strap my broken leg at home, don't strap your mind with band-aids and do it at home. Seek medical help. I can't overemphasize that, because that's the only way you can know for sure if you're getting the right set of support and treatments and everything that is needed there.
Dr. Rita, we are speaking to creatives who, I know the question of cost is a big deal. And while many creatives do not have a consistent income, and not many creatives have medical insurance, when you say approach Toli Wekka, is there a pro bono space? Is there a pro bono facility that a creative who doesn't have a steady income or even readily available funds to pay for a service like this? Is this an avenue that they can approach? Because I do know sometimes costs can deter somebody from seeking help.
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that we've done is also mobilize and connect with other people who provide free counseling. Some of them are only available as online counseling, others are available in person. Organizations like Mental Health Uganda provide some counseling. The Ministry of Health also has some free counseling. And of course, there are some services that are free available, and there are other services that are not. But even those that are not free, they might be offered in a way that is less costly. For example, if you come in and you're part of a group therapy, group therapeutic intervention, that means that we kind of put together a group of 8 to 10 people who have similar issues, and they engage the psychologists at the same time. So there's this facilitated group engagement, which is extremely helpful and is a very powerful tool. So you might bring down the cost to 1/10 of what it would be if you were seeking one-on-one support. So I think that people should look out, seek help. Similar to how they do it for the physical illnesses, physically you also do seek help, and then you decide, oh, I can afford it, or I can't afford it, or there are options, and you follow through accordingly. But to fear not to seek help or to refuse to seek help, for me, is the thing that we really need to change. People need to get out there, get professional help, and let those professionals advise if they can, if you can work with them, or they can refer you to other people that might be able to offer services at a lower cost.
Thank you. Paul in the chat is asking, overthinking is one of the mental health challenges. How does one try to reduce overthinking or cope with it to prevent possible challenges caused by it?
It's a great question. I think I had some points around, here, dopamine, gratitude journal, creative activities. All of these things are going to actually reduce your indulgence in overthinking. But there are different things that you can do around that, mindfulness practices and things that could be helpful. But I think that overthinking is really a symptom of anxiety usually, or stress, and you need to, deal with those things. And sometimes they are at a level, the stress or anxiety is at a level where you cannot manage it yourself. And at that point, you need to actually get help. And that help might include psychotherapy, and they might take you through different exercises and things like that. Or it might include even addition of medications. So don't medicate yourself, but rather seek help and let the professionals decide what you need. But on your own, you can do certain things, get active, get into, routines, and do other things outside of your, the work that is keeping you overthinking or worried about, but do other things as well. So there is quite a few things that one can do.
Thank you. Barbara, your hand is up. And then for those who have joined the call a bit later, there's a QR code that Dr. Rita is going to put on the screen. You can scan that QR code to do a self-test. Thank you. Barbara, your hand is up. Over to you.
Not really. Sorry, it was a mistake.
Okay. Jacob, your hand is up.
Thank you again. I just wanted to ask Dr. Rita. I recently discovered that. Just wanted to know where one can study art therapy in Uganda from, or if those services are actually there for someone to become a professional art therapist.
Very good question. I was discussing this actually with Owekitiwa Nuwanyazi, because he is very keen and involved has been involved in art therapy. And people like that would actually be useful to contact to find out what's happening in that space. Certainly something I need to find out about, but I would say...
Dr. Rita, we can't hear you. Is it me?
Oh, do you not hear me?
I can hear you now. You're back.
Okay. I was just saying that that's a great question. Owekitiwa Nuwanyazi might have some insights on art therapy. It is something that he has been quite keen on as well. I'm not so sure where the training is in Uganda and what training is available, but certainly something to explore. And yeah, it's a great question. I'll find out as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rita. Do we have any other questions from anybody on the call? We will be sharing the highlights from the presentation for those who joined later. So please look out for this on our social media page. And there will also be a direct link to the Toli Wekka page and a link to the QR code for you to share with your colleagues who may have missed the call to do a self-test. Amina, over to you.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Everyone. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, maybe for like a leader in a creative field, what are like signs that you can that will show you that maybe the people on your team are not coping so well, especially if they're not, because sometimes people are not as open to share their problems with others, and then it's just like if somebody comes to rehearsals with a lot on their mind and a lot on their plate, it has sometimes it has a ripple down effect on how it affects everybody else. But like, how do you tell like this person is just dealing with a lot mentally, and what are some key steps to just diffuse the situation?
Yeah. That's a fantastic question because I think we were talking about empathy earlier and the need for us to be proactive in finding out what's going on with other people. But I would say the common things would be someone is definitely not their normal self. You can see maybe there was previously friendly, bubbly, and now they are withdrawn. They don't want to engage. They're forgetting their lines, for example, all the time, like uncharacteristically. They clearly didn't sleep well. They come with these red eyes in the morning, and you're like, what's going on? They might even actually come smelling of alcohol. You can see that they've been drinking. That's already a massive red flag. You will see that something is not going right with them, and I think the first point of call there would be to have a conversation, chat to the person, find out what's going on, how can I help you, those kinds of things. And then, of course, it would also be helpful. Sometimes people are quite resistant, they will not say anything. But if you did it all as a group and said, hey guys, let's check how are we doing actually? Let's check our mental health status, and you introduce it to everybody in the group and let everybody do that. That might also be helpful to at least help them to see that actually there's something wrong. They may not show you their findings, but at least they will know. And then you can have conversations about, guys, if you're not feeling well, it is normal not to feel okay. But I mean, it's okay not to be okay, but what is not okay is for you not to do anything about it. So seek help. There is no point really being among people and then you don't utilize those people to help you. That's why those humans are around us. We are social beings. We need to be helpful to other people in our midst and make sure that we can assist them. Sometimes they don't even realize there's something wrong, but it's the other people who will realize this person, very smart, often like really very well dressed. Now they are unkempt. They come in with unironed clothes. They're just clearly not themselves. Then you see there's a problem. Or the person is not pitching up, keeps dropping, keeps not coming, keeps not keeping appointments. It's not who they were or who you know them to be. Then you can see there's a problem. So there is quite a few triggers like that you can pick up. And then having open conversations within the team so that when people are not feeling well, they know that it's okay to talk about it, or it's okay to be able to say, I need some time out, I need this or I need that. So I think that's creating a very healthy environment within your workspace where people can actually talk about it, confide in at least one or two people, and seek the help that they need. But thank you so much for that question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rita. Do we have any other questions from anybody on the call? Going once, going twice. I would like to now ask Dr. Barbara.
Yes, maybe let me just add on a little bit about identifying, especially now in a setting of, for instance, a live band. I had spoken something about isolation. That is one of the key things. Once a person starts not wanting to come into, being regular where they used to come to, then you have to find out what's going on. You have to start following up on them. And then we should also remember that there are different causes for the mental disorders. So now you have to consider, are they using alcohol, drugs? Is it just depression? Is it family issues? Is it what? So depending, each case will depend on the facts and the matters that are behind it. Like for instance, if they are, that the person is actually an alcoholic, you see them doubling up the substance. If they smoke, you see them doing it more than they used to do it. Because there are some people that we know, for me who has worked with bands before, I know people who smoke their weed who have been doing it for years. And for him, that's how he knows it. It's like he knows his doses. That's how it has been. But then there's another, and you see that this one, he wasn't like this, but now he's smoking, he's taking alcohol, then you have to start questioning such people. But yeah, each case comes with different facts. But thank you meanwhile for the discussion. I believe we need to do more of this. Dr. Rita, Aluta Continua, and the entire team, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Brian, your hand is up. Magala, please unmute and speak. Magala, if you're having any challenges, maybe type in the chat and we will read your question. Because we can't hear you. You're still muted, so we can't hear you. I'm going to have to move on to Dr. Rita for her closing remarks.
All right. Okay. I think for these ones, let me put on my my camera just to again thank you so much for all the opportunity that we've had and the amazing conversation that we've had here. I think that I do hope that people found it insightful, and I also do hope that you will all take proactive steps to take care of yourselves, take care of your mental health, to educate yourself, make use of the resources. I hope you will follow our YouTube channel so that you can access all the different podcasts that we are putting out every week, and that you will share it with other people. The mental health screening is a basic thing you can do for yourself. Take that simple step to know where you are and basically be proactive about taking care of yourself. And very importantly, for the people in your life, your loved ones, your friends, your family, your workmates, your children, especially your children, please be on the lookout. Look out for what is different, what's going on. Make sure they get the help. If you have children, don't allow your children to only be raised by the house help, the maid at home, or the matron at school. Please engage actively, be a proactive, involved parent. That's the best thing you can do. The creatives that we have today were children of yesterday. And in fact, some of the creatives are still children. We need to mentor them. We need to support them. You can all think about how much better you will be, or how, in where you would be at if you were raised in a very supportive environment and continue to have that support around you. So in closing, surround yourself with people that can help you, but use the resources. We are so blessed in this era to have access to so much just on the click of a button. So let's use it and let's take care of our mental health and also help others who may not necessarily know about these things as easily as we do. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rita. The pleasure and honor is ours to have had and listened to you today. Thank you so much for sharing a lot of wisdom with us and the creatives that were on the call today. We will be sharing the highlights from the presentation today, as I shared. In the different groups that many of you are on, this will be shared. The QR code as well will be shared, and also the site, the link to the Toli Wekka website will be shared. So please look out for it so that you can do your self-assessment. And we will be sharing the next conversation in the different groups. Thank you so much once again, and have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.